Good evening, everyone. Jeff, Quadriga, congratulations to you for organising this crucial debate. And can I just say at the outset, much of what Kate says we can look at, but for me, it's competing visions of our country and where our country is. It's not a question of who's more patriotic. I'd never question anybody's patriotism or desire to do the best of their country. All of us share that. We just have different views about how best that we achieve that. So it's a really important debate about the future of our country. And I believe that we can be a proud, independent country and part of the European Union at the same time. I'm not one of those who says that if we left the European Union, every single thing would collapse around us. I don't believe that. But I do believe that by being in the European Union, we can achieve more growth, better prosperity, and more for our country. And it's not theory, it's not trying to promote fear, but it is something to actually point out to people what being a part of the European Union actually means for the UK. Access to a market of over half a billion people. 1 in 8 jobs in Northern Ireland linked to EU trade. 9,000 businesses within Northern Ireland linked to trade with the European Union. And of £3.63 billion pounds worth of exports to the European Union, with 37% of that linked to trade with the Republic of Ireland. So it's no wonder that when the CBI polled businesses in Northern Ireland, that over 80% were in favour of being part of the European Union. And people say we can have all the benefits of the European Union. We can be like Norway. We can be like Switzerland. But if you look at what Norway and Switzerland actually have to do to gain access to the European Union, they actually have to adopt many of the laws, many of the processes in order to gain access to that market. And the great thing that's put out there about freedom of movement, both Switzerland and Norway have to accept freedom of movement in order to gain access to the European Union. So the illusion that's sometimes created that we, if we left the European Union, could have the panacea of being like Norway and Switzerland, we would actually be in a situation where we would have to accept many of the rules and regulations of the EU, but actually not have a place at the top table to negotiate what those rules should actually be. And many of you here work in finance. What would be the impact on interest rates were we to leave the European Union? If there was a run on the pound, as indeed the Bank of England and the Financial Times recently pointed out, what would be the consequence of that? In order to try to protect the pound, interest rates would have to rise. Many of the people who work in the City of London, which promotes such huge wealth for our country, over 11% of those come from other European countries. And if we look at agriculture and if we look at fishing, agriculture, £300 million worth of money come into Northern Ireland to support farming. Now it's said, of course, that if we left the European Union, don't worry about that, that money would still come. But we go for the certainty of knowing that that money was available there to support the farming industry in Northern Ireland, to the uncertainties of whether it would or not. And we're also told that the border wouldn't make any difference. It wouldn't be a problem. But if the UK left the European Union, the border between North and South would not be a border between Northern Ireland and the Republic, it would be a border between the EU and the UK. Now, I'm not saying for one moment, and Kate referred to this, so I'm not for one moment suggesting that there would be a return to the bad old days that you would know better than me. I'm not saying that. But the idea that there would be no consequence for that seems to me to actually be the sort of politics of it'll be all right on the night. I mean, why would it be that if we come out of the European Union, that border wouldn't actually mean something in terms of customs? Why would it not mean anything in terms of the movement of people? Because it would be the border. If we're saying that we need to do something about the freedom of movement of people, 30,000 movements of people take place across that border each day. What would that mean for that? What would it mean for people who were trying to come into the European Union? What would it mean for that in terms of that border existing? Questions that can't be answered. They're not questions that promote fear. They're questions that actually saying, if you wish to come out of the European Union, you need to be able to answer these questions to reassure people about what the consequences of that would actually be. And let me deal with this issue of sovereignty. I personally believe very much in the UK exercising its sovereignty. In the vote that will take place on the 23rd of June, that is an exercise of the UK exercising its sovereignty. People have a view of our sovereignty as being that we have to come out of the European Union. That unless we come out of the European Union, we can't exercise our sovereignty. My point is this. By pooling our sovereignty, by the UK as an independent country, as an independent nation, deciding actually that it wants to work with other countries across Europe to tackle issues of common between them all, such as climate change, poverty, inequality, generating economic growth, all of those things. You can join as an independent country with those countries to tackle common problems across Europe and indeed across the globe. That's an exercise of sovereignty. It's just that you are choosing to do that with other countries as we do with respect to the United Nations or NATO or other such factors as that. And I think that that is a really important point to get across. Let me say this as well, that I think it is important, and there will be a battle of statistics. There will be people like me who will say these are the jobs and the businesses and the money that's produced from being a part of the European Union. I think the point I've just made about pooling of sovereignty is a really important point because of this. I think it's really important to project a positive view of what Europe does. I make no apology for saying that I think the UK has been enhanced and improved by being a part of the European Union. I think our country, acting in a sovereign way, has actually contributed to Europe and contributed to some of the great issues across the world. If you look what the EU has done with the UK as a part of it in terms of combating terrorism, of combating issues of poverty, of climate change, all those things that I've mentioned, it is really important. And isn't it interesting when you talk about that, about the positives that take place there between what the young people think and what older people think? Young people that I speak to, and I'll finish here, Jeff, young people I spoke to, you know what the issue they said to me, Vernon, we're really pleased about? And it very rarely anybody like me or Kate or Owen or John talks about, they said the EU is going to get rid of roaming charges. That'll do for me. Thanks very much.